Hi, my name is David Ettinger. My firm is Keller and Heckman, based in Washington, D.C., and we're the Mackrell International member for that jurisdiction. While the firm is the member of the Washington, D.C. jurisdiction, I actually work out of our office in Shanghai, China. Oftentimes when I tell people that I work in China, they say that must be an interesting area of practice, and what type of law do you practice? And what I focus on is food safety. And what we essentially do is help multinational companies from the US, Europe, or other parts of Asia who want to bring their new products into China. Could be food ingredients, food additives, new health foods, any type of food-related product that they want to bring into China. And oftentimes, that is a very difficult situation for companies to do. And that's essentially because back in 2008, there was a crisis, a food crisis, the melamine scandal, where various food was tainted, impacting many people's lives, particularly infants. And as a result of that, the authorities decided they need to crack down on food regulations, to develop new regulations, stricter regulations, and enforce all of these regulations. So what we're seeing virtually on a weekly basis are companies who are trying to bring their foods into the country and essentially have problems at port because maybe, for example, the labels don't comply with local laws, or the companies think that because their foods or food ingredients or food additives are cleared in their home country, that necessarily means that they're cleared in China. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And those products will find themselves seized at port by the authorities and oftentimes either exported back to their country of origin or maybe in the worst case scenario destroyed. So those are typically enforcements that are done by the authorities. But when I'm dealing with companies and they ask me what the biggest challenges are, in the last year or two I can say that the biggest challenge that multinational companies are experiencing are the enforcement by the professional consumer. Now, many people don't know what that term means, but it's something that stemmed from the new China's food safety law of 2015, which basically gives consumers the right to collect 10 times the value of the products that they purchased if they can demonstrate that those products do not comply with the laws. So this was established to protect a legitimate and good faith and bona fide consumer. But what's happened over the years is you have the so-called professional consumer, and it's not just an individual. Oftentimes it's now a group of people who've actually developed their own companies where they're looking for products which have defects or non-compliance issues. So they will essentially go into a store, look around, they know just enough about the food safety laws to know what may comply or what non-comply. That could be, for example, the font size of the label is too small, or it's missing certain ingredients or certain nutrient values that have to be on the label. So they'll purchase not one, not two, sometimes 1,000, 2,000 RMB worth of product. They'll go to the local FDA officials and they'll say this doesn't comply. Then the multinationals will be called into the FDA local's office, and this now will involve not just the local team of the multinational company, but getting now the contacts involved from the States or Europe or outside of Asia. And these companies have to appear before the local FDA in China and defend the case. And this could be a case that could be valued, as I say, as 1,000, 2,000 RMB, or the equivalent of just a few $100s. But they nevertheless have to defend that case. And it's become a situation where, quite honestly, it's been abused by the consumer because, again, of these so-called professional consumers. And what the consumer will do is if they win in one jurisdiction, for example, if they win in Shanghai, they'll then go to Beijing or Shenzhen or another part of China, and they'll purchase the same product because they'll see that same product on the shelf in a similar store, and they'll go to that local FDA official's office and make the same complaint. And we've seen actually this happen case after case after case. And you know it's the professional consumer in many cases because you can have a situation where they'll be very specific about the claim, and then you'll settle the case, and that claim will reappear again in a different part of China. And you know that it's the same consumer because they filed the case, and the clients have to essentially go in and defend. So what we are doing now is we're trying to help companies deal with the professional consumer, and there's many ways around it. Of course, if you have a product that is pointed out as being unsafe, then the professional consumer may have a legitimate point, and you want to deal with that case as quickly as possible and make sure the product is fixed so that there are no other complaints in the future. But when you have a situation where a consumer is clearly abusing the system, dealing with an issue that does not relate in health or safety, but may be a very minutia type of issue, then you may want to not necessarily go to pay out those damages, but you may want to deal with fighting in court. So there's certain decisions that need to be made, and at Keller and Heckman in our Shanghai office, we can do things to help navigate you around the situation. Hopefully we can give you advice before the product comes to port so that you know what issues to look for and what the issues to take care of before the product even enters China soil. Or if you unfortunately have a situation where even with good faith there's been a problem, then of course we can help you with settling, and there are now new types of settlement agreements in place where you can ensure, or do your best to ensure, that if a consumer agrees with you to settle for one time 10 times the price, that they would not then be able to go to other jurisdictions and file the same complaints. So there's ways of sort of capturing the issue at the onset and to deal with it immediately. But this, I would say, when you're doing business in China, particularly in the food consumer products world, this is what companies are dealing with, and it's basically a situation that can be dealt with, but it has its challenges. So if you find yourself in this situation, feel free to contact me or any other of my partners who work in the food and food-related packaging group at Keller and Heckman, whether in our DC office or Shanghai office. Thank you.